As the second wife of Henry VIII, Anne Boleyn has a place in history that few others can claim. Her execution in 1536 for adultery and treason made headlines across Europe. And her daughter, Princess Elizabeth, went on to become one of England's most beloved monarchs. But what else do we really know about this infamous queen? Let's find out the untold story of Anne Boleyn in today's episode of 1536. Number 7. Anne was born into a noble French family with ties to the royal court. Many people believe that Anne was born in Paris, France, but she was actually born in the village of Wetherby in Yorkshire, England. She was the daughter of Thomas Boleyn, an English knight, and Elizabeth, who was the sister of King Louis XII of France. As such, Anne was the first cousin once removed of Mary, Queen of Scots, because of her mother's French lineage, and had the option of claiming French or English citizenship. However, when she was just 2 years old, her father returned to England with his children and settled in Hever Castle in Kent after living abroad for several years and spent the majority of her life in England. But because of her mother's family connections, she grew up speaking French at home. This bilingual upbringing would serve her well when she entered the royal court, as it was fashionable at the time for nobles to speak French. Number 6. Anne's first marriage was to a member of the British royal family. When Anne was 15 years old, she became the third wife of James Butler, the 9th Earl of Ormond. At the time, the bride price for Anne was 4,000 marks, which was paid by James' father, Thomas Butler, who was the 8th Earl of Ormond. Although there were rumors at the time that the marriage had not been consummated, historians now believe that this may not be true. There were probably political reasons behind the annulment. One theory suggests that the Butler family wanted the marriage dissolved so that James could marry someone else and produce heirs. Another theory claims that the marriage was never legal in the first place because James was still married to his first wife when he married Anne. This would have been acceptable during the time period if James had received a papal dispensation to marry Anne, but he did not. Whatever the real reason may have been, the annulment left Anne free to marry again, and she wasted no time finding a new husband. 5. Anne married Henry VIII for political reasons. For many years, Anne and Henry had a close relationship that was strictly platonic. They enjoyed hunting and playing tennis together, and they also had a deep intellectual connection. Henry was enamored with the Protestant Reformation, which was sweeping Europe at the time, and had studied in France with some of the leading Protestant scholars. The two often engaged in theological debates and discussions. But while Henry was attracted to Anne's intelligence, he wasn't ready to marry her. At the time, he was still wed to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. In fact, Henry would go down in history for having 6 wives. That was until recently when a man named Montezuma set a new record by marrying 500 women. Henry was determined to annul his marriage to Catherine so that he could marry Anne, but the Pope refused. The Catholic Church was reluctant to grant the annulment because Catherine was the aunt of Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor, and the Church did not want to upset him. This led to a power struggle between Henry and the Church, which ultimately resulted in the English Reformation. In 1534, Henry broke away from the Catholic Church and established himself as the supreme head of the Church of England. 2 years later, he married Anne in a secret ceremony at the Manor of Greenwich. Number 4. Anne and Henry had one child together, a daughter named Elizabeth. Their daughter was born 3 days after Christmas in 1533 at Greenwich Palace. It is believed that Henry hoped for a son, as he desperately wanted a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty. According to legend, when he learned that his daughter had been born, he exclaimed, "Oh, a kingdom for a son," which is where the song 16 Tons got its title. Unfortunately for Elizabeth, she would live a life of uncertainty during her early years. Her parents kept secret the fact that she was a princess, and she was raised believing that she was illegitimate. Historians believe that this was done to protect Elizabeth from Catherine, who wanted the throne for their daughter, Princess Mary. Elizabeth lived with her grandmother, the Dowager Duchess of Norfolk, until she was around 13 years old. During this time, she received an excellent education, which emphasized theology, law, languages, and government. Sadly, Anne was executed when Elizabeth was only 2 years old. After her mother's death, Elizabeth was reunited with her father, who finally acknowledged her as his heir, and was pregnant when she was executed. On May 1536, Anne was arrested for committing adultery with 2 of the men at the king's court, Thomas Culpeper and Francis Weston. She was also charged with incest for allegedly sleeping with her brother, George Boleyn. From the moment Anne was arrested, her fate was sealed. Although Henry was initially devastated by her arrest and begged her forgiveness, he went through with the trial and sentenced her to death. Many historians agree that Henry was eager to get rid of Anne so that he could marry one of her ladies-in-waiting, who was a much younger woman, and gave birth to a son 2 days before her execution. Sadly, the baby boy died shortly after birth, and Anne was buried in an unknown location. Note too, the executioner who beheaded Anne Boleyn may have been the same man who beheaded Mary, Queen of Scots. Very little is known about the man who executed Anne, but some historians believe that his name was John Feckenham or John Feckin. If this is true, then Anne's executioner was the same man who executed Mary, Queen of Scots, nearly 30 years later. It's possible that there weren't many professional executioners in England at the time, and so the same man was called upon to carry out both of these famous beheadings. Number 1, Anne's execution inspired one of Shakespeare's most famous plays. One of the most famous writers of all time, William Shakespeare, was born in 1564, just 2 years after Anne Boleyn's execution. Although Shakespeare didn't live long enough to see Henry VIII's court, he drew inspiration from Anne's story for his play Anne, Queen of England. It tells the tale of 2 sisters, one of whom becomes the Queen of England and the other of whom is sent to the Tower of London and awaits her execution. Some historians believe that Shakespeare based the character of Lady Anne in the play on Anne Boleyn. The playwright attended court performances and would have heard many stories about the disgraced queen from those who were actually there. It's possible that he even met some of the people who knew Anne personally, as many of Henry's courtiers lived in his hometown of Stratford-upon-Avon. Well, we can't say for sure how much truth there is to the rumor. It's certainly an interesting thought. Thanks for watching. Do you think Henry was right to break away from the Catholic Church? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and remember to stay tuned for more videos like these. Enjoying our history content? Subscribe and share it with fellow history lovers to help us grow our channel and uncover more untold stories from the past.